uprisings against their servants or against their masters, right? And so this helped the masters, the elite class, decide to separate people based on race. And what happened is they would give the non-Black servants, slaves, just a tiny bit more, whether that be a tiny bit more food, whether that be a slightly better living circumstance, a little bit more freedoms. And this helped to create that racial hierarchy. And what it does is it helped create the illusion of being better than. And so instead, white folks who were still part of that servant class would continue the idea of being more elite. And so it helped the fight be aimed downwards instead of upward. So instead of African Americans, instead of white servants, instead of them joining together and fighting for their freedoms, fighting for the injustice that they were involved in, they began, well, at least I am not, unworthy like these people. And so the fight stayed at the bottom, which, who does that benefit? It benefits the elites. It benefits those who have slaves and servants. So that the racial hierarchy, that is who is benefiting from the racial hierarchy and the zero-sum policy. Those who already have all are keeping those who have not at the bottom, arguing and fighting amongst each other instead of joining together to fight with those who already have all. Heather says in the book, direct quote, racial hierarchy offered white people a reprieve from the class hierarchy and gave white women an escape valve from gender oppression. So my question to you is, do we see this hierarchy playing out now? And how? So I got to show you the last 2 pages of this chapter because there were so many things that I was like, I have to touch on this. Look at this. The last 2 pages are just incredibly meaningful. In talking about the zero-sum story, Heather says, people who gained power through ruthless exploitation and kept it by sowing constant division. It has always optimally benefited only the few while limiting the potential of the rest of us and therefore the whole. In decade after decade, threats of job competition between men and women, immigrants and native-born, Black and white, have perennially revived the fear of loss at another's gain. The people setting up the competition and spreading these fears were never the needy job seekers, but the elites. This is happening right now. It is so abundantly clear to me, and I can't understand why it's not clear to everyone. We are seeking out the deportation of entire groups of people, and one of the things that they are sowing so strongly in the minds of Americans is these are people who are coming to steal your jobs. What? That is what's happening right now. It is instilling fear and desperation in people who are already fearful and desperate. Okay, this is something that is aimed directly at people who do not have stability and job security, which we already know is a problem in the United States. We heard that fact earlier about even pre-COVID, 40% of people who are working are not making enough to essentially survive. And then the idea is presented to you. Now we have people who are coming here trying to steal your jobs. That is directly preying on our insecurities, and it is pitting us against an entire group of people. That is my opinion based on facts, but my opinion. She says the zero sum is a story sold by wealthy interests for their own profit, and its persistence requires people desperate enough to buy it. Well, guess what? There are people desperate enough to buy it, and it is costing families. It is costing, I mean, this is a mess. This happened directly when slaves were freed in our country too. One of the ideas behind we can't free slaves is that they are going to come and take your jobs. If we give them freedom, they are going to take your jobs. And it's not the people, it's not the wealthy elite that are scared. They're not desperate enough that they need to hear this information. So back then, that's exactly what it was. It was the working class people, and it's like, we cannot free slaves because they will take your jobs. They will take your homes. They will take everything that you have. Now it's just a different group of people, but the story stays the same. So as we finish this chapter, Heather asks the question, why is it that white folks think that they are the victims, or that they are going to lose when Black people prosper? So she asked herself a few questions. Maybe it's the idea of affirmative action. I've found in my experience that a lot of people do not understand affirmative action. We're going through all of this with the rollbacks of DEI and whatnot in our country right now. But she gives a great example here. A lot of white people think that Black people are accepted to college. They get to go to college for free, when the reality is that Black students on average wind up paying more for college through interest-bearing student loans over their lifetimes because they don't have the passed down wealth that even poorer white students have. This is kind of a little bit of a tangent. This one is hard for me. It's taken a lot of time to really sit back, consider, and find my feelings about it, because as a nearly 40-year-old, I still have a tremendous amount of student debt and probably will forever. So this one's hard for me. I never thought that Black students went to college for free, but I'm like, hey, wait a second. I'm in a bad position too. My parents were able to take out parent loans and assist me in paying for college. That's not always the case for Black students. My parents had great credit scores. We know that the credit institutes, they're already tend to lean heavily against people of color and provide higher interest rates for non-white folks. So we know that that's already a problem. And then the other thing is this, and this is something it's taken me a while to come to this conclusion. Just because I am also in that poor position when it comes to student loans doesn't make it right. And it doesn't make it, well, why do I have this? It is injustice for both me and people who look like me, and an injustice for other minorities. It is still that way. So that's just something to consider. Just because you have the same or similar disadvantage doesn't make it right. So thought there. She also asked, well, maybe it's welfare, because we have been painted this picture of, you know, strong, hardworking white Americans paying their taxes. And then the thing that is the strongest, and I want to say, I'm not 100% sure, but I want to say it was actually Clinton era that was painting the idea of the welfare queens, the women who didn't do any, particularly Black women, didn't do anything, collected welfare checks so that they could do fancy things, drive nice cars, stuff like that. That whole idea was something that was, you know, ingrained in people, is that it was hard working white taxpayers paying for minorities who were lazy and spent their money improperly. But she says, did you know the majority of people receiving government assistance, like the majority of people in poverty, are white? And Black people pay taxes too. People of color pay taxes too. So that's something that we have to consider. Where did we get these ideas from? Where did these thoughts come from? Because they're not something that we generated on our own. They are something that has been presented to us for decades. So the last thing that she says, and I'm going to read this quote directly. This is the very end of chapter 1. It says, today, the racial zero-sum story is resurgent because there is a political movement invested in ginning up white resentment toward lateral scapegoats, similarly or worse situated people of color, to escape accountability for a massive redistribution of wealth from the many to the few. For 4 years, a tax-cutting and self-dealing millionaire trumpeted the zero-sum story from the White House, but the Trump presidency was in many ways brought to us by 2 decades of zero-sum propaganda on the ubiquitous cable news network owned by billionaire Rupert Murdoch. This divide and conquer strategy has been essential to the creation and maintenance of the inequity era's other most defining feature, the hollowing out of the goods we share, which is what the next chapter is about, entitled Racism Drained the Pool. So you know where we're headed. That is just a big quote I want you to sit with, because scapegoats is a perfect word in this. We are scapegoating the people at the very bottom to distract us from where the money trail is actually leading. I would have to do some research on this, so I will say that this particular thing I'm about to say is not necessarily factual, but we're often told that welfare is being taken advantage of, that people who are capable of more work, capable of whatever, are just abusing the welfare system or abusing Medicaid, abusing Medicare, all of that. And of course, there are situations where that is happening. Absolutely. There's always going to be somebody who cheats the system. It doesn't matter what system it is, it will get cheated. And that's just a fact of humanity. But my question and thing for you to consider is, if we added up all of the people who are maybe legitimately cheating the system, would it equal what we are willingly giving billionaires? And I'll even say the higher bracket of millionaires, the people who are making more or worth more than 500 million. Is it the same? Because what we give people on welfare, benefits on Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, all of that, what we give those people is negligible in comparison. So even if people are cheating the system at the bottom, is it really in competition with those who are taking at the top. Just food for thought. So I hope to come back in a few days with chapter 2 because it's a heartbreaker.